We'd like to welcome now Natalie Gochnour, Director of the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute, and economist Carrie Mayne, who are going to give us some information, statistics, economic report. Natalie's the state treasurer, I can tell you that. Welcome.
Good morning. We're just waiting for a slide clicker. Natalie is indeed the treasurer, and I am honored to be speaking with her today. My name's Carrie Mayne, and I'm the chief economist with the Department of Workforce Services. And the plan today is to present to you some really important economic data that we are tracking day to day that really measures exactly what you all have been speaking about today. And as we know, the best way to make informed decisions is to make data-driven decisions. So we very much value our ability to inform conversations and especially conversations about solutions. We feel that when we're able to make our data affect those decisions, we as economists in the state feel successful in what we do. So I plan to lay out that data story for you all very quickly, and to then turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Natalie Gochnour, who will dig into policy related to this data. I want to start with the key measure, the one we all know, the one that we look forward to hearing every month, that really tells us where our economy is and speaks to any local, state, national economy, and that's the unemployment rate. Derek Miller was just speaking of it earlier. We are currently at 3.9% unemployment. It is an amazingly low unemployment rate. It does indeed signal full employment for our state. And really that's the theme of those who have been speaking here earlier, that we are at full employment, and therefore many of you representing different industries are seeing labor shortages. Our data is verifying that. We do indeed validate with that data that you are seeing a shortage. Now, I just told you 1 month's worth of data. Any of you who are watching this data throughout the months, throughout this year, are certainly wondering about that unemployment rate because it has been trending upward. We enjoyed for most of 2015 a rate that was in the 3.4 to 3.6 range. It has been ticking up as of late. And of course, people ask the economists in the state, what's going on? Are you at all worried about a potential slowdown? Our answer to that is absolutely not. It's interesting that you have to think that the unemployment is a rate. So there are numbers that are going into talking about this movement in unemployment counts. What's happening in our state is we have such a great economy, we are attracting people into the workforce that prior to this upturn were not in the workforce. So as these people enter the workforce, they often enter as a job seeker. So they will be unemployed. So we see the number of unemployed rise. But we're also seeing the number of employed people rise. So we know that this is actually a good thing. It's a very good thing. And our other economic indicators absolutely support this. So of course, if we're going to make some sort of conclusion about the number, we want to add additional data into this story. And what supports this best is our job growth rate. Our job growth rate for 2 years now has trended above our long-term average. Our long-term average for our state is about 3.1%. That's very healthy growth. We're currently, as of July, at 3.2%. And for many months, we have been well above that 3.1%. So that validates what we have been feeling regarding this uptick in the unemployment rate, which is we're attracting workers. We're attracting workers to the state. And the best part about this, the part that tells us that we have impeccable leadership here in Utah, is the fact that we are growing across many industries, all industries but one in our state. So we are adding jobs to construction, which grew at 7.3% in July, financial activities industry, which has excellent job opportunities, 6.7% growth. Education and health services, again, a great place for job opportunities and career growth. That industry is growing at 5%. So you have heard the governor and other economists in the state tell you that we have a diverse economy. It's a lot like your portfolio. When you're diverse, you can weather storms. And we are weathering overall a small storm in our state, and that is the effect of the drop in oil prices on the employment in natural resources, mining and gas. And that is the negative bar that you see on my chart here. It is indeed true. We have shed jobs, and unfortunately it's focused in one particular region of the state. I don't know if any of you are from that area, but in the eastern region, there is a significant slowdown, and as an economist, we will talk about the multiplier effect of that. When people in one industry in the area lose jobs, they lose pocket money, and when they aren't spending at the restaurants and the movie theaters and they're buying fewer groceries, that causes a ripple effect with jobs in other industries. So we know that that has grown over the eastern region. However, what is nice, what is good about this is with the right players in place, we can ensure that the health of the state of Utah can be used as a catalyst for helping the eastern region. You all probably have seen that the oil prices have leveled off, and we expect that the rate of shedding of jobs is also leveling off. So there now needs to be the policymakers, the solution finders, coming together to ensure that we can bring the economic opportunity that we see in the Wasatch Front down to that eastern region. What this means for those of you here who are business owners and hire workers is you look at that job growth and you look at that low unemployment rate, and what you've been talking about today is labor shortage. And there is indeed a shortage. And this is where agencies such as ours, Workforce Services, partner with education, training providers, industry to help make sure that we use data to fill those labor shortage gaps. One of the best places that we find to inform job seekers and industry decision makers about where those tight spots are is to look at real-time data. What we do is look at job postings. We have aggregators who scrape across those many job posting tools to find out where are we seeing those hot spots. We hear from industry. We were hearing from industry earlier today, but you need data to support. We have that data to support. So when we get those aggregators and look at trending occupations, what I've summarized for you here, and the font might be a little small, I apologize, but these are places where in the last 120 days we have seen the most openings in those jobs that require some sort of post-secondary education, where we're going to need education and training to come to the table and hear these pinch points and help respond. But this is also an opportunity for us to rebrand this message. It shouldn't just be a message of labor shortage. It should be a message to those job seekers that this is economic opportunity for you. There are many people who gained employment during the recession that was below what they would like. They're underemployed. They're working 2, 3 part-time jobs. So instead of talking about just talking about a labor shortage and education's need to fill that, we also need to talk to those job seekers in those underemployed situations and say, look, there are economic opportunities. And in fact, if you read down this list of jobs, the vast majority of these jobs have excellent wages. This is an opportunity for that person who isn't quite making ends meet to get some education, get some training, get some exposure to these industries, and gain those well-paying jobs and move up the career ladder. These are exactly the times that we do this, and this is a message that we carry forward in Workforce Services. This is an opportunity for not your new job, but your next job. You got that new job during the recession, the one that helped you make ends meet. We're ready to give you your next job, move up that career ladder. We also want to inform people about those longer career decisions as well, and we have data that speaks to that. So when we look short-term at real-time, that's a lot of the churn that's happening as people are moving jobs and there's a lot of growth. But for long-term planning, we can also inform that with data. So we look at a long-term outlook for those same job types, those jobs that need post-secondary education, where a student may be looking today, but they know that they're not going to be out of school for another 4 years or 2 years or 18 months. So they want to know, are these jobs going to be available in the future? Is this something that I will still be in demand and relevant down in 2020? So we have data that informs that as well. And really that's where we are trying to get with our presentation here today. And my role is presenting this data is to tell you that we can supply that data that helps to drive effective policy solutions. And so this is my time to turn it over to my colleague who really knows about effective policy solutions. So thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Carrie. Let's give her a hand. That was very helpful. For those of you that don't know, Carrie sits at the epicenter of economic intelligence in this state. And so if you don't know Carrie Mayne, you should know her because she oversees all of the jobs data that we get as economists and does terrific work. I was asked to queue up a couple of policies that come from this discussion that Carrie shared. And so, you know, essentially she's laid out that we have low unemployment, rapid job growth, full employment. She used the term labor shortage. And, you know, that gives me opportunity to talk about two things. One of them is immigration policy, and the second one is education policy. And since yesterday was immigration policy in this country, I'm just going to let you kind of think about that one, and I'm not going to talk about it today, to the disappointment of some of the people in the audience. Lane referenced it, but we certainly have labor shortages, particularly at the hourly level and at the high skill level, and we need immigration reform to address those things, and it helps our economy grow. I want to talk a little bit about education, and I want to do it by referencing Carrie's graphs here a little bit. So I'm going to go backwards. And I want you to look at two things in these two graphs. So this is the job growth graph, Utah the top line, US the bottom. I want you to see the peak and the troughs. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the unemployment line. And I want you to see the peaks and the troughs. And what you see is that the Utah economy and the US economy share a very common path. We might grow faster, but our peaks are the same, our troughs are the same. We might have a better unemployment situation, but we're very similar. So I got thinking about that, and I wanted to make the point to this audience that when the US economy struggles, it's just inevitable that the Utah economy will eventually struggle. We share a very common destiny. We're part of the same supply chain, transportation network, you know, government policies that come out of Washington affect us. And so the question is, why is that so important? Why is it important that Utah and the US are linked? So I'm going to put up a graph here that's very complicated. It's going to require me to explain it. And it won't surprise you that it has red on it. It's football tonight, University of Utah. Come on. We're deserving of something. Okay, so this graph is, I want to introduce you to some data that's done by the Harvard Business School, and this is the project on U.S. competitiveness. And they essentially take the alum network of the Harvard Business School, about 82,000 of them, and then they draw a random sample of about 2,700. And they asked them about U.S. competitiveness. And then they created this very complicated quadrant graph. To explain it to you, the vertical axis is the trajectory of the U.S. economy compared to other advanced economies. And the x-axis, or the horizontal axis, is the current U.S. position compared to other advanced economies. And essentially what you want to be on this graph is you want to be up in that upper right quadrant, which is the one that is strong and improving. And if you're in the lower left quadrant, you are weak and deteriorating. And then you can see strong but deteriorating in the lower right, and in the upper left, weak and improving. Then they asked them all these things. How do we do in entrepreneurship? How do we do in hiring and firing? How do we do in property rights? How do we do in logistics, regulation, and so on and so forth? So you can see what makes it up in that upper right quadrant. And one of the things you'll notice is universities. American universities do really well, best in the world. Then if you go to the lower left quadrant, what do you see? K through 12 education, weak and deteriorating. These are what Harvard Business School alums think about our competitive position compared to others. So the policy question I want to ask you is, what are we doing right in higher education that we're not getting right in K through 12? Someone knows the answer to that. Okay, let me make another observation. You notice that I have some things in black, some things in red. The things I have put in red are things that government mostly has control over. Our higher education system, property rights, the legal system, macroeconomic policy, skilled labor, legal framework, certainly the tax code, political system, K through 12. And you'll notice a lot of red, or the things that government has a strong arm in, are either in the strength and deteriorating quadrant or the weak and deteriorating quadrant. That's a problem. And the things that are doing well are things that the private sector is so good at: entrepreneurship, firm management, innovation, capital markets, and the like. So the policy question there is, what is the private sector doing right that government is struggling with? So I'm going to ask those questions one more time. What are we doing right in higher education that we are doing wrong in K through 12? And what are we doing right in the private sector that we are doing wrong in government? We have all the way until noon, 1 o'clock today to ponder those questions. I'll leave you with one final observation, and that is that in the information age, there is nothing that I can think of that is more important to a nation or to a state's economic success than our ability to train our people to have prosperous, gainful employment, to provide for their families. From that context, education is an economic imperative, and I think our data shows that we've got some work to do. Thank you very much.
I wish we had time for questions, because what a great presentation and what great resources they provide to us in trying to work through that. It's no accident that somebody that's an advocate for education is your moderator. When we look at that K-12 indication, it's not an indication of the system, it's an indication maybe of our support. At least that's an editorial comment. Panel, and now we're going to have a panel doing things differently, filling the industry gaps, filling the training gaps. If they'll start coming up, Ben Hart from GoEd will moderate, Pam Burke from Albany Engineering Composites, Matt Wardle from JD Machine, Nathan Tenzer from Edwards Life Sciences, Korvyn Dornseif from Willis Towers Watson One Exchange. So if they'll come up quickly, and we'll get the mics to them and we'll go. Welcome, Ben.
All right, well, it is our great pleasure to be here with you this morning. We've got a great panel for you, but before I start off, let me just acknowledge and thank the extraordinary leadership of Senator Mike Lee on really what is the critical issue facing our economy, not just in its current state as well. This is something we've been talking about, as Derek alluded to this morning, for some time. I also want to acknowledge and give thanks to Matt Holton. I think he may have just stepped out, but he's doing a tremendous job trying to get across the state for Senator Lee. We appreciate the good work in shining a spotlight on this critical issue. Workforce really is the dominant issue when it comes to our facing our economy today. And our panel today is made up of experts who are doing some incredible things within their respective industries. Before I jump to that, Carrie had a chance to highlight some of the incredible growth we're seeing right now in the state of Utah. It really is unprecedented. And we're at this precipice. We've been here before. We know that if we cannot solve this workforce issue, get better in-migration into the state, and also ensure that we're getting training programs properly and appropriately set up to serve industry need, then we're going to experience declines in what we're seeing in growth. We've got to have the workforce. It's the critical issue right now. And so this panel that is going to speak to you today are doing some really innovative things within their own respective spheres. And so we're going to hear from, first, I'll introduce them and give them a chance to sort of highlight what they're doing. And then after that, we'll take some questions, if there are some from the audience. Otherwise, I have some. But our panel today is made up of Nathan Tenzer. Nathan is the Senior Director of Manufacturing for Edwards Life Sciences. We've also got Matt Wardle, who is the President and CEO of JD Machine. And then we've also got Pam Burke, who is the Director of Human Resources from Albany Engineered Composites. And then Korvyn Dornseif, and did I say that right, Korvyn? Dornseif, got it, is also going to be joining us. He'll tell us a little bit about his company, Willis, as well. They're doing some amazing things with incumbent worker training. So with that, we'll first hear from Matt, and then we'll go to Pam, and then Nathan, and then we'll lastly hear from Korvyn and the good work that they're doing before we go to questions and answers.
I appreciate this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what our industry has been doing to solve the workforce shortage that is prevalent in machining today. JD Machine's about a 170-person contract manufacturer in Ogden, and we support a lot of the large manufacturers in the state, the Boeings, the Varians, the Rio Tintos, and in component parts. And I think back a couple of years ago when I sat around the table with my management team and talked about how important it was we added additional capacity. We needed to buy another machine tool, and it was about a $700,000 investment. And we had the work, no problem financing and in making that investment. We had the plant space to put it on the floor. The big question was, who will run this thing? And it was, unfortunately, a reoccurring topic. It's something that had happened many times over the years. And these jobs in machining may be a little different than what you envision. If you've been to a machine shop recently, you'd know that in many cases you can eat off the floor. These are well lit, they're very safe environments, clean, high tech. The people that are working there are very well compensated. A good machinist, a journey level machinist can make $75,000 to $120,000 a year. Benefits, work environment, challenges, opportunities, upward mobility are all there. They're just incredible jobs. In 1999, we looked at finding solutions to the training issues that we faced and getting the skills into the hands and heads of the people that operate these machine tools. And at that point, we found that an apprenticeship was the best option to do that. Now, apprenticeship has a lot of different connotations, and most recently, most of them have been positive. But an apprenticeship, as ours is set up, is a 4-year training program that can be customized and has been customized to the needs of the individual company. Our apprenticeship is a competitive advantage because it gives people the skills they need to succeed in the products that we produce. It also forges a really strong partnership with an educational institution. Being in Ogden, we are very fortunate to have a great partnership with the Ogden Weaver Tech College. They provide the classroom training for these apprenticeships. So we've been working this, but we've been in competition for employees. Across the state and across the nation, machining is a skill set that's highly in demand. There's been a workforce shortage for quite a long time. Even manufacturing through the recession fared pretty well, considering. So as on the national stage and also locally, we start looking at this problem and thinking, you know what, I have a good solution here, but we need a good pipeline of people coming through. So in 2010, we put together a trade association, a chapter of the National Tooling and Machining Association, where companies like mine got together to work on common needs and interests. And obviously the first thing that came up was the need for machinists. So as we started working on these things, discussing it, sharing best practices, we made some traction and things started going. We had some open houses, started working towards improved and increased partnerships with the educational institutions. And it was going along pretty well. And then in 2014-15, we became aware of a Governor's Office of Economic Development grant, a UCAP grant, that allowed us to work together and get some funding to put together a really, really nice solution. And as I mentioned, not too long ago, we had a hard time filling these machinist positions. I'm happy to report things are much better now. With that funding, we first started working with employers and providing resources needed for them to develop and receive approval through the U.S. Department of Labor to have a certified apprenticeship program. That required a lot of work with the educational institutions, the UCAT campuses, Salt Lake Community Colleges, and getting those apprenticeships in place was the first step. But in parallel with that was a marketing campaign, and many of you may have seen the billboards on the up and down the Wasatch Front for the machineutah.org website. This website was a result of that effort as a clearinghouse to educate and provide a vehicle for people to apply for these apprenticeships. We held open houses. We attended skill fairs. It's quite a process to get that pipeline flowing, but it is working, and it's working well. We're in the second year of this, and our focus is shifting really to adding more employers to this. I don't care who the employer is. If they have people to hire, then my workforce is just a little bit safer. So we want more employers involved, and we are reaching into the high schools. Ideally, the ideal job candidate for JD Machine would be someone who understood a little bit about machining during high school. Maybe during the summers, they attend the Ogden Weber Tech College, get some training, and we hire them right out of high school. So we're excited about what's going on. I feel 100% better about the prospects going forward. Still nervous because of the unemployment rate, but that's kind of how we've approached our issues.
Thank you. And before we go to Pam, just a couple things to mention that I think are really important. Apprenticeships, they're becoming a national topic for sure. The Department of Labor, even the Department of Commerce federally, are putting a much stronger emphasis on apprenticeships. And they're even saying we need to look at other models from around the world in places like Switzerland and Germany, where apprenticeships are part of their education system. Starting in 9th grade, kids are actually entering into the workforce. And so we're starting to even look at other countries and saying, what are really good models that potentially we can look at here in the United States? Obviously, there's some differences. The other thing I would mention is Matt brought together other industry partners that had some of those same issues to identify a solution. I think that's really important. When you get a lot of companies engaged together, it's a force multiplier, and you can get more done. So I think a couple of really important points, and we'll come back and we'll talk about some of these things as well.
My feet don't hit the ground there. I got to stand up. So, we've talked about this morning the shortage of employees, industry growth. Utah's a great place to be, which is why our unemployment's so low. And that's exactly what aerospace is facing. So I'm with Albany Engineered Composites, and there are 7 key aerospace hubs throughout the U.S., and Utah is one of them, which is great. We've got some really great, bright aerospace companies and employees and talent here. So very similar to the story we just heard, the industry partners came together and said, we're not meeting our current needs, and we are all growing. We need to be successful as an industry. We need to build a pipeline. We have to have people come in and fill these roles. So we put together the Utah Aerospace Pathways, and this is a fantastic program. We're very excited. We've just completed our pilot year, and this program is engaging the industry partners where there is definitely a partnership. We have engaged education, both in the high schools as well as the ATC programs, as well as the Governor's Office of Economic Development. So we're partnering together to say, how are we going to address this issue, this problem, and how are we going to be successful? So putting together this program, there's a lot of things that we needed to do. One, we recognize the stackable curriculum, okay? You graduate high school, we have a job for you. You want an associate's degree, we have a job for you. You get certificates. You want a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. We have education assistants. We can help you with that, and we have a job for you. So different ways to get people there, but we have to get into the high schools and help them understand what this manufacturing looks like. As mentioned before, this is not the, I think it was mentioned on one of the previous panels, don't think about what you've seen on TV or, back in the Industrial Revolution. Manufacturing nowadays is completely different. We wanted people to see that. We needed to educate the teachers that were going to teach these programs in the high schools. We needed to educate the counselors. We needed to educate the parents so that they would be supportive of what we had to offer. So we did an internship for the teachers. We built stackable curriculum. We worked with the education to work on these are the behaviors as an industry that we want. These are the skills we want them to be able to perform. And what we found is they're really bright and capable and talented, so they had to say, up your standards, we can do more than that, which was really great. Then we had to do a road show. We had to generate interest. We went and actually did a composites demonstration in the classrooms to show them what it could look like. We provided a lot of industry tours. Come and see what we're doing, get a feel for what this means. We did orientations, we did training as to how to get a job, and then the program itself, 60 hours in the classroom, 48 hours at an ATC program, and 48-hour externship as a high school student in manufacturing. So yes, they're not 18 yet, but that's okay. We worked through all of those issues because we want them to have exposure. This is what life in our industries look like. This is the opportunity you have upon graduation and meeting our requirements that you could be doing. So we've completed this pilot year, and very pleased to say the 41 students that we were able to put into the program all graduated the program. Now, not all of them had plans to enter the workforce upon graduation, and so some of them had other post-graduation going to college and other things, but we have been successful in hiring many of the students that went through the program. With this program, they receive a certificate, a Utah Aerospace Pathways certificate, that guarantees that if they apply for one of our openings, they will get an interview, not a job, but an interview. That's a very powerful thing for a high school student to have, to say, I know that competing with everybody else applying for that job, I at least get my chance to share what I've done and why I'm interested. So we are building our pipeline. It's going to take time. It doesn't happen immediately. But knowing that starting the process, building the pipeline, this year, tweaking and using our continuous improvement to make sure that we close some of the gaps that we identified through our pilot year, that we're going to be able to continue to grow so that all of the industry partners, everyone in aerospace can be successful. Many of us, we may be friendly competitors, but they're also suppliers to one another, customers. It's all good. So that is what we've done through the Utah Aerospace Pathways, and very excited about what the future looks like for these students in this program.
All right. Thank you, Pam. We'll come back and do some Q&A with Pam in just one second. But before we go to Nathan, again, just a couple of highlights from what she's talking about here. We're not suffering from a shortage of people. We have enough people. Carrie alluded to that in the labor force participation rate. We're seeing more people come off the sidelines. What we have is an ability to reach out to those people, get them interested in where the jobs are, get them through proper training programs, and then into the workforce. There's a very important adult learner component to the Utah Aerospace Pathways program as well. Getting more kids and more those who've dropped out of the labor force, whether it's into Salt Lake Community College or the Davis Applied Technology College, to get that training so they can get into the workforce. And I think that's the second point from what Pam talked about. I see President Bowis, Ginger Chin, and others from DATC. I saw Rick Bullion and some others from Salt Lake Community College. If you're not working with your local education, you definitely need to reach out to those folks. They are critical in meeting your workforce needs, whether it's training young students or whether it's bringing adult learners through their programs. Getting in touch with your educational partners is hugely important. So with that, we'll go to Nathan.
Thank you, Pam, for letting me borrow your mic. I was going to use my production supervisor voice there where I could speak and everyone would be able to hear me like I was talking to the production floor, but I get to use the mic. My name's Nathan Tenzer. I'm here representing Edwards Life Sciences. Edwards Life Sciences is not necessarily a household name, so I'll take a minute to introduce the company. We're a medical device company specializing in cardiovascular life-saving technologies. We're best known for heart valves. In 1958, we invented and commercialized the first heart valve. We've been commercially selling heart valves since then, and most recently, we've commercialized a heart valve that is implanted without open heart surgery. So imagine that for a minute, that previously your entire chest had to get cracked open, and now there's a technology to put that heart valve in place without open heart surgery. If you were too sick to go through open heart surgery, you were pretty much just sent home. So that's a pretty amazing field to be a part of, and it's very, very exciting for us. Edwards has 4,600 US-based employees, 950 of which are based at our Draper location. In 2011, we had 320 at the end of the year. Now we have 950. So that's about 25% year-over-year growth, which is very, very scary for a company when we're in an environment with 3% unemployment. So that's a pretty significant challenge for us, and we don't really see a slowdown in that growth. We're still growing explosively, which is a great problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. So we've taken a couple different approaches to develop the pipeline of talent here in Utah. Our newest initiative is actually very closely based on the aerospace initiative. So it's the Medical Innovations Pathway. So very close modeling. We even stole the innovation pathway part of it, but put medical in front, so it's ours. This is a very strong collaboration between industry partners in the medical device space, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, the state, and a couple of the school districts that we have here locally. The key there is to develop specialized coursework to prepare high school students and adult learners, but the primary audience is high school students, for work in our field. So we've got some unique challenges. All of our production, of course, occurs inside of a clean room, so helping understand what that means. It's a very rigorous, regulated environment, pretty atypical from that perspective. All of our lines are team-based, understanding how to work as part of a production team, and understanding the differences between value-added work and non-value-added work to help kind of drive the lean methodology from the very beginning. So this specialized coursework culminates in a certificate, very similar to the program we just heard about, and we have the same type of commitment that anybody who that goes through this program and gets the certificate is guaranteed an interview at one of the sponsoring companies. Now, it's really important to note that all the sponsoring companies also have a generous tuition reimbursement program, and we very sincerely hope that as students come out of these, whether adult learner or high school students, they take advantage of these programs. They can move into technician roles or engineering roles or any of our office professionals. So this program's at its infancy. It's starting this year in 2016-17, so I can't talk about all the amazing results, not yet. We'll come back next year and we'll talk about the amazing results. So we're just getting off the ground. We're very, very excited. There's another program that we have that's been active for about 12 years. This is one that's focused on engineering talent. So we target 7 to 10 universities across the U.S. I'm very happy to say University of Utah is one of the targeted universities, along with Georgia Tech, Duke, and a number of other very prestigious universities. But the goal of this program is to recruit top-tier engineering talent. It starts with an on-campus interview where prospective candidates are screened. Typically 1 to 2 from each university is invited to a second round of interviews. So it's a very competitive program. That second round occurs at our corporate headquarters in Irvine, and then candidates are slotted into either entry-level engineering roles or into a rotation-based program. Like I said, this has been going on for about 12 years. We recruit somewhere between 10 to 12 engineers per year. It's been very, very successful, and these are very, very high-caliber people who come into the organization. Each of these folks are paired with a peer mentor, which is somebody who's gone through the program a year prior, so someone who can kind of work them through the ins and outs, and then also a senior management mentor to help kind of career advice and navigate a large organization. So it's been very, very successful. It's one that we've been really proud of. About 50% of my engineering hires actually come from the University of Utah going through this program. So we start with our resumes that we get from this program first before we go kind of outside of it. I guess, and lastly, I'd like to thank GoEd. We've had a great partnership there. Appreciate all the listening to the challenges that we've had in our industry and helping us deliver the technology to our patients.
Thank you, Nathan. And just a couple quick points. So the Department of Workforce Services and their Utah Cluster Acceleration Partnership grant provided a lot of the funding to help these programs. So we are very indebted to DWS. They do a tremendous job, and we appreciate our partnership with them. And the other thing, just some of the names that are combined in some of these partnerships. Nathan, with some of the MIP, you've got companies like Edwards, obviously, but Merit Medical, BD, Bard, and some of the other big life sciences companies in the state. And then in aerospace, we've got Orbital ATK, Boeing, Lockheed Martin has even been coming on board. So we've got big names that are definitely looking for solutions here. So we appreciate their involvement and their willingness to involve the state. So with that, Korvyn, I think you're up.
I'm with Willis Towers Watson, which is a global HR and risk consulting firm. But I'm going to talk more specifically about One Exchange Individual, a line of business they have, which is a private Medicare exchange, and also now branching into the IFP market with the Affordable Care Act. And we got started technically in 2004. I joined the company in 2006, and they'd at the time they had what they called a health savings account, where employers would provide a fixed contribution amount for their employees to get whatever health insurance coverage they wanted, rather than doing a group plan. And we talked to a company called Chrysler, and they said, that sounds amazing. Our group plans for our retirees are killing us. You got to help us out here. And we were like, excellent. We can do that. We, of course, couldn't do that. We'd never heard of Medicare before. But we built out all those systems. We got those retirees transitioned, and they found that there were huge cost savings for the employer and that the retirees now had individual choice, that they could find a plan that best fit their needs. And our motto as an organization was no retiree left behind, that we would make sure all those individuals found a plan that best fit their needs. And it's been a phenomenal platform. We've been building it out ever since. The difficult part has been that I don't know what the exact numbers are, but we were about 50 employees when I started in 2006, and we're about 4,000 now. So 50%, let's say, growth year over year for the last decade. And that's meant that we've had to grow all those systems that we've built internally, our telephony systems, our customer service systems, being able to license and appoint and certify 4,000 benefit advisors in the span of whatever time frame you have, 3 months, 6 months before they need to talk to those people on the phone, that seasonal workforce. All those systems we build and maintain internally, and we need talented software developers, talented business analysts to be able to do that. And so from the get-go, especially in the startup days, we found that the cost of engineers was a little bit out of our price range, and that there was an extreme scarcity, that we would have to try to poach them from other companies. So we worked very closely with, I should say we hired very exclusively from schools that we felt their graduates could hit the ground running, and that we could mentor them and train them up to be successful members of teams in our organizations. And that school was Newmont University. And so we didn't really find a degree paths that gave us the support roles that we needed in those more quality assurance, business analyst type roles. And so we started to look within our own organization for that talent. We would talk to, of these thousands of employees, we would find the ones who really understood our systems. They really understood the software. And we would then take them into a mentorship program. We called it a provisional quality assurance program, where we would train them up the science behind testing and behind building software. We would show them what actually went into building software, how it would go through the requirements gathering phases, implementation, quality assurance, and eventually delivery and triage within our call centers. And if they were passionate about it, then they'd stay on full time and fill that role. And it's been pretty rare that we've had people take on this opportunity and not go into a career in quality assurance. And we're now trying to, we've been working with Newmont and Helio Training to try to get them to that next level of doing automated testing and even software development, to give them that baseline of technical understanding to be able to, that we can then take them and mentor them on. So that in a nutshell is the challenge we face, that our growth as an organization has been extremely limited by the number of people we can bring on, like the number of open teams. We have a huge backlog of projects that would all generate revenue, would all provide value to our organization and provide value to our customers, but we are limited by the number of teams we can add based on how many people we can effectively mentor at the same time. So right now we're just branching off our 12th team. We can't branch off a 13th until we know that we've got a team lead who can effectively manage 6 developers, 2 QA, a provisional, and that product owner, and keep them on track. And within each of those roles, there's also senior and more apprentice level people going through that same learning and leveling process. And our organization, and I would say the software development community as a whole, they've put in a ton of knowledge sharing systems and capabilities to support that. The beauty of knowledge is that it's not a finite resource. It's not like an apple. If we want to share an apple, we each have half an apple. With knowledge, you share knowledge, you both have it now, and you'll probably come up with innovative new ideas having shared it. So within our own organization, what that looks like is that we have open source Fridays at 4 hours out of the week Our developers and QA all participate in open source projects and contribute to those projects regardless of their association to our organization, and learn from other members of the community. We also have them do presentations on the technologies that they learn. They give those presentations at the team level, and based on the value of those presentations, we'll then kind of give out awards and have them present at a company level. And those presentations are then available out in the community, not just within our own organization, but within others, on relevant technologies and ways of tackling these problems and growing your organization. So that, it's where we stand as an organization that we're just poised for growth. We're at about 150, 200 in our technology staff now. We'd much rather be at 300, but we continually find ourselves in a situation where it's a matter of, to get those further numbers, we have to steal them from other organizations, essentially, in my opinion. We have to lure people to our organization because they're already in good jobs. They already have great career paths. We just, we're creating environments that are more lucrative, or that they think it's a more fun place to work. And then we also are taking on a large burden of training internally, which, don't get me wrong, we enjoy doing, but it does seem like a problem that could be solved before we bring them in the door.
Perfect. Thank you, Korvyn. And so what we've heard from is 4 distinct industries: IT, life sciences, aerospace and defense, and also manufacturing. These industries are critical for our state. As we move forward, we think about how Austin became Austin with IT. We think about how Silicon Valley became Silicon Valley. We think about similar regional leaders when it comes to aerospace and defense and life sciences. It's because of the workforce. And right now, where we're in a strong growth mode, we have just an awesome opportunity. If we can help to solve these issues, then we have the chance to take the next step. And I think Utah is poised to take that next step. And so I'm gonna go through just a couple questions and answers. If we do have any questions from the audience, we would be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and throw some questions out to the lobby or to the panelists. And I'm actually gonna start with Matt, and I'm gonna put him on the spot just a little bit. The apprenticeship conversation, again, it is getting a lot of national talk time in terms of workforce solutions, not just in manufacturing, but also in other industries as well. Matt, would you talk a little bit about that process? You talked a little bit about working with the Department of Labor, but what it meant to set up an apprenticeship and sort of what that process looks like?
An apprenticeship really is the employer investing in their workers. And in the past, it's, there's been a number of ways to find people, grow your own, but as soon as you grow them, then they may get poached by a larger company. It created a lot of challenges, and the system of an apprenticeship, there's a number of ways it can be done, but as the NTMA chapter here in Utah has adopted, it's a very flexible program where we can write our own training curriculum, and it's on-the-job training. It's an 8,000-hour program, 4 years, and in a JD machine, a machinist has to show competencies in various skills that are inherent to a good machinist. They also have to have about 470 hours of classroom training, and that can be inside the company, the majority of which we've chosen to go with a tech college. So in general terms, there's a on-the-job training component, and there's also an education component. These apprenticeships have proved to be very valuable because it systematizes the process of training someone. There's certain things that they have to do, and it ensures quality. It fulfills some of the requirements we have for our ISO quality registration. It also provides something tangible for that individual to have as they complete, and it's a distinguishing factor as for JD Machine as an employer, because we can say, here is your certificate. It's a 4-year, in many ways equivalent to a college degree, and very, very marketable, but they have something tangible, and it also is stackable. Weber State University actually has an associate's degree in applied science and technology in apprenticeship, so it's a great pathway in many ways, and hopefully distinguishes those employers that invest into their people apart from those who just say, here, go have at it.
Thank you, Matt. So just let's start with Korvyn, and let's just come back and have each of the panelists respond to this a little bit. And I'm going to carry a theme that we've already heard just a little bit this morning, and that is, how do we change perceptions about your respective industry? How do you get kids, students excited to come into your respective industry? It seems like that's something that's could be very easily done, and yet we often struggle in that area, yet we're seeing solutions up here. So Korvyn, do you want to start, and then Nathan, Pam, and then Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I actually came out to Newmont, or to Utah, specifically to go to Newmont for software development, and I knew so little about software development coming out of high school that I bought the wrong book. I bought a C++ or a C book for my C# class. So, and I was a computer guy. You know, there's really no understanding of computers, how computers work, what software does, how the software industry has changed over the last 10, 20 years. In my opinion, you know, within the population as a whole. So getting people to realize that software development it's not math and science so much anymore as it is problem solving and communication and working as a team to accomplish business goals. And seeing people, the type of work that they do to accomplish that is not as dreary as one would believe, and that there's a really vibrant community out there building tools that make it easier every day, that it's, you know, closer to writing in English.
And how scared they were of the unknown, about going through multiple doctor's appointments, and they didn't really know which way was up. And at one point, she broke down in tears as she was telling us her story, and all of us are there crying along with her, because you know, you can't see that and not think of your 10-year-old boy. I have an 11-year-old boy at home. I'm actually tearing up just now thinking about it. It was an incredible thing. And so there are lots of places where you can have jobs. And I think one of the things that we have in the medical device industry is we have jobs that have such a huge impact to the community around us.
Yeah, thank you.
Within aerospace, we definitely have, like I said, a lot of competitors here locally. And with that, we also have some regulations. So it's not just an open door, hey, come see what we're doing. I think we're all familiar with aircraft, and it's really great. And I am assuming that many of us like to travel, and we've used these aircrafts, but how do they come about? And the fact that what we're putting on that aircraft has to be accurate. We do not want something coming out of the air because our product failed. So there's some criticality in what we're dealing with. But it's not just an open door, everybody can come in and see it. So this is where we really worked on the tours, and we actually coordinated through our UAP program to where high school students would get on a bus and they would come and visit at least 2 of the industry partners so they could see some of the variety in what we did, but also wanting to give them an idea. Now, with this, we do have regulations as to if you're not a U.S. person and how we deal with that, and you know, so there was some strong coordination that had to take place to make this happen. But we wanted people to see it. We really wanted them to get an idea of what the industry really was about, and you know, basically how those airplanes come about, what goes into it. And I mean, there's little tiny pieces that we're involved with that may not look like anything you'd put on an aircraft, but just knowing that you're a part of that bigger industry was very exciting and good for the students to see how that happens.
Likewise, the best thing we can do is get people inside of our shop. They come in, it's an instant paradigm shift because they can see the work environment, they can see the technology. We look for every opportunity we can to bring high school counselors in, parents, students. I know the UMA is involved with Manufacturing Day. We hope to partner with them on that, where on an annual basis there's a campaign and the public is invited into these facilities. I think that's one of the best things that we can do.
Yeah. So in summation, I believe we've hit our time, but I wanted to thank the panelists. Just a concluding thought, and that is our students have a tremendous amount of curiosity. And if we can tap that curiosity, get them out into industry, that can become an incredible influencer in building our talent pipeline here in the state of Utah. Really, the time has come to stop complaining. That time probably passed a long time ago. If we can't turn our talk into meaningful action and come up with solutions that correctly address industry need, then our industries are going to stop growing. And that's where we're at right now. And so we have to come up with meaningful solutions. And I hope this panel has been able to give to you some ideas today, hopefully that will benefit your business. I owe them an extreme debt of gratitude. They did all the heavy lifting for this panel. So Korvyn, Nathan, Pam, Matt, a tremendous panel of experts. Please, one round of applause for them. Thank you.